Hey guys, if you watched my previous videos, you should know the app we are trying to build. We are building a React native car booking app. I'll put a link in the description box if you want to know how the final product will look like. So in this video, we are going to be setting up Redux for our app. So what is Redux? There's a good documentation on Redux on this website. You can go ahead and check it out. But basically, Redux is a predictable state container for JavaScript apps. For those of you who don't know, React is basically a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. So Redux basically helps you to manage your application state. For example, if you open a model on a page, the fact that the model is open in is an application state. So a boolean with a value of true could be responsible for that model showing up on your page. So now you might go ahead and make changes on the model contents, which could be adding items to a to-do list on the model or something like that. That is adding also another application state. Okay. So React and Redux, they really work well together. React will take care of the user interface while Redux can make API calls or interact with the database, and it passes all that to React, which will display different user interfaces. So I won't go much into detail about this, but I will show you how I set up the Taxi app to use Redux. So you can go ahead and download this code from the Git repo I've linked in the description below. So we're going to be using what is called a Fractal folder structure. So I think it's important that I mention the folder structure that I'm using. When I was developing React and Redux apps for the web, I used a starter kit created by I think it's DAVEZUKO. This is his Git repo name. So I'll also link this in the description box. So what I did is I just modified this in order to make it work with our React Native app. Okay. So to start, what we need to do first is install Redux. So you just need to cd into the Taxi app that we created before. Then we need to install Redux. I'm not going to type in all these commands, it's a lot of them. So I've typed them already, so I'm just going to paste this on our terminal. So what we're installing is React, Redux, thunk, React Native Router Flux, and React add-ons, and I'm going to save. I hope this installs fast. And also need to copy this. Okay, it's done. The next thing we want to install is the Redux logger. So what this Redux logger does, it's pretty standard, and it can be easily be done with a middleware, if you know what a middleware is. With the logger in place, every time you run your React Native application, right, you will be able to see the stats and actions in the console. I'll show you how that works later on. So first of all, let's just install this with a dev. So it will be under the dev dependencies inside our package.json. Okay, it's done. So the next thing we want to do is to start off by modifying our main.js. So I'm just going to delete everything which is in here for now, except the one at the top. And then I'm just gonna change everything inside here. Going to export a default class called root, which will extend React.component. I'm just gonna create a render app. In this render app, I'll then call it inside the render method. Just return this dot render app. So I'm just returning this here. So what I need to pass in here is the initial state, or create a variable called initial state. This will be the initial state of the application. Take it from window dot initial state. And the next thing is I create a variable called const store. The person create. I'll explain what create store is later on. I'll pass in this initial state. Then inside here, I'll return something. So before I continue, I will need to create a few folders. I'll start by creating a folder called app container. So this app container will be the main container for our app, where we'll pass in all the routes and sends inside this. I'll also just go ahead and create all these other folders. We have a folder called assets. This is where all our assets will go. We have components. Components, this is where we put all the general components which are generic to the whole app. Then we have routes. All our routes will live in this component. Our routes or sends, whatever you want to call them. Then we have our Redux store here. Okay. So inside the store folder, we are going to create our create store. We're going to create our store inside here. Create store.js. So I'm not going to type in everything here. I've already created. There's a lot of code here, so I don't want this video to be too long. So I'm just going to copy this and I'll explain what's going on. Okay. So firstly, we have create store. So what create store, it just creates a Redux store that holds the complete state tree of your app. Okay. And applyMiddleWare will basically allow us to extend Redux with custom functionality, like introducing thunk or logger, anything. Okay. And thunk allows you to write action creators that return a function instead of an action. And compose is used when you want to pass multiple store enhancers to the store. So Redux only comes with one enhancer. This is called the applyMiddleWare. So if you have other enhancers you want to pass, you add them inside this. Then you pass them inside the composer with the spread operator. This is ES6 syntax. So the next thing you want to do inside our store, we're going to create reducers.js. So inside this, I'm just going to import. So our app will have routes. So for each route, we will have modules with their own reducing functionality managing state for each route. So I'm just gonna import combine reducers from Redux. And I'm just gonna type export const make root reducer is equal to an arrow function, and we are returning combined reducers to pass on the object inside here. And then I will just need to export this for default make reducer. So what is this combined reducers? It's a helper function. Combined reducers will combine all these functions from different routes and will turn them into a single reducing function. You can then pass it later on to the createStore like we did in the createStore.js. So I'll show you later on when we are creating individual reducers that we're going to pass inside here. So the next thing I want to do is inside the app container, I'm going to create a new file called index.js. In this file, I'm just going to create a normal component again. I'm going to import, sorry about this, import React component prop types from React. I'm going to import router from, what's the name of this module? It's called React native router flux. I hope I'm not making a mistake here. Then I'm going to import provider from React Redux. So what this provider does, it will make the store available to the components hierarchy. So I'll later on show you how you pass in the store to this provider. So what we want to do right now is say static prop types is equal to, this is an object, we have store, pass in prop types, this is an object, sorry, object is required. Okay, then we create a render. Oh, sorry, before you do that, you have to export default class app container which extends component, do like this. Then we're going to have a render method here. And we're going to return now return the provider. and pass in the store, just this dot props dot store. Just gonna close this, and inside the provider we then have all our routes. Now the store is available to all these routes. So I have router with all the scenes. So I'll have to create the scenes later on. Scenes. Okay. So the next thing I need to do is I need to create the scenes. So I'm going to create our first route. I'm going to call it home. So inside here I'm going to create another folder called home. And inside home I'm going to create a folder called components. Components, this is where all our components related to home will stay. Then I'm going to create another folder called containers. So basically containers is where we map state to props, and we will also map our action creators. I'll show you all that later on. Then I'll create another folder called modules. Inside modules, this is where we'll have all our reducers for this route. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to create the basic home component. Okay. Inside our home route, inside the components folder, I'll create a file called home.js. This will be the main component for the home route, the only one which has state. Other components here will be stateless, so this one is the only one which will be the one which carries the state of the app. So I'm going to import React from React. And I'm going to import, maybe I'll use view, and I'll also use text from React native. Then I'll need to create our component. I'll call this home, which extends React.component. We have our render method, and I'm just going to return a view. So later on I might create a separate styling sheet for this component, and it will contain JavaScript, but it looks like CSS. So if you have a CSS background, it will be very easy for you. So I'm just going to create some styles here. Style is equals to just a flex 1, and I'll justify content center, and also align. Item center also. Let's copy this. And inside here I'll just write some text. say hello world, and I'll save this. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is I'll need to create a container where we'll map our state props and our map, and also map our action creators. So inside here I'll create another file, and I'll just call this home container.js. Inside here I'll import connect from Redux, React Redux, and I'll also import the component that we just created. I'll import home from components slash home. And also we'll need to import, if you have actions that you create in your, we'll create actions in this modules folder later on. So this is where you import all those actions and later on map them to your map action creator. So I'll just import this from modules, and I'll need to create this file called home. But for now, let me just finish this. Const map state to props is equal to stat. This is an R function. This is where I will pass in all my props that I want to map to my components. Map action creators. So I'll just type in the same stuff I'm importing here. I'll just be typing it in inside this. And I'll write export default connect and then I'll pass in home. Okay, we created all these files but we didn't save, so let's just go ahead and save this before we continue. I'll save this and save this. Then the next thing we need to do is to put some files inside this modules folder. The first file we want to create is home.js. This file will contain all our actions and handlers. So in this file, what we want to do is I'm going to import update. This will be used when you're updating the state. So it's a React add-on, and that's why we installed it in when this video started. I'm gonna import update from React add-ons update, and I'm going to import also constants from action constants. I like to keep my action constants in a separate file, so I need to create this file, action constants, which will be just here. So inside here I'll just do export, just export default. My action constants will come here. Okay. So I'll be importing those constants, whatever I want to import is equals to constants. So just create an initial state here. This will be our application initial state. To just be an empty object. And we want to export our home reducer. This will be our home reducer. And we're passing in the initial state, which is an empty object for now, and also the action. Const. So here we need to create action handlers that we'll need to pass here with the action type. So at the top here, let me just create a constant called action. Action handlers should be equal to objects. So just pass in this same constant here with the action dot type. So if the handler is present, then we have a handler with the state and action. Otherwise we have the initial state. So right now we just want to check if we have everything we need inside main.js. What did we leave out here? Oh, we're creating the store here, so I need to import those things I just created. So I'm just gonna import create store from store / create store. And I'm going to import our app container from app container. So we're just importing the app container, which is here, this index, and we're also importing the create store, which is here. So now that we have the app container, we can return this inside here. Just return app sorry, just copy this app container, and we're going to pass in the store, this props. Save this. Then there is one more thing. We need to change how our app looks like inside our index.ios. Right now we are importing main, but we changed that from main to root. So I'm just going to change this to root. Everything else remains the same, so I'm just going to change this to root, and inside here I'm just going to pass our props with the spread operator. This dot props. One more thing, I'm just going to remove these styles from here and just leave flex one for now. Save this. If I didn't miss anything, if I run this app, it should run. So I'm just going to go here, clear this, and just run React native run iOS. If everything is correct, the app should run, which means we have linked our Redux correctly to our React Native. Then we can start creating our actions inside our Redux store. But for now, let's just wait and see. Like boring part about setting up React with Redux, it takes so much time. But once you have set up everything else, everything will just be flowing automatically. To be very okay. We missed something here. Syntax error in index.ios on line 20. Okay, index.ios on line 20. Sorry, I missed this. It's supposed to be 3 dots. Oh, I forgot something else here. So inside our reducers, we need to actually import the home reducer. So to do that, just type in import home reducer, the reducer that we created in here. This, I'm going to import it here. Home reducer. I'm just going to import it as home from. We're going 1, 2 from routes, going to home, modules, and home. So just pass this inside here. Save. Okay, now this is set up again. Go ahead and refresh. Oh, we're getting another error here. This is coming from here, so let me just comment out this for now. Save. And one more thing we forgot to do is to create a file called scenes inside here, because we need scenes. We're importing scenes from here. We need to import scenes from here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to import scenes from, I'm going to create this file from routes /scenes. Then we pass all our scenes to the router. So inside scenes, I'll create a new file called scenes.js. And in this file, I'm going to import React from React, and I'm also going to import I'll import action scene from React native router Flux. I'm also going to import our home container that we have here. Sorry. Our home container that we created in here. Home container from home / containers / home container. Then I'll create a variable called since goes to action dot create then I'll place all my scenes in here. So our home scene will be the main scene, but we need to put it inside the route scene. Call this key is equals to root scene then we need to pass in the scene key. Our key for this scene will be home, and the component we are using is home container that we just imported from here, and the title for that will be just home. This will be displayed on the navigation bar, and this will be our initial scene. Save this. Oh, I forgot to export this. Export default home. Let's see. Can't find variable actions in scenes.js. Oh, it's action. I wrote what? Sorry. It's like this. Also, we forgot to add this inside a return. So we need to return something here. So I'm just gonna type in return. Need to close this, and I'm going to copy and paste all of this inside here. Save this, and one more thing, I think I made a mistake here. This should be like this. Save. If I refresh this, I should be able to get hello world from here. Now using this, if you on your keyboard, if you click Command D, you should be able to stop remote debugging or enable it. If you want to debug your JS on your browser, you just go and hit Command D on your keyboard and debug JS remotely. Then you can be able to see what's going on. If you have any errors, then you can fix them from here. So what I'm going to do right now is just show you how Redux works. So first of all, I'm going to create an action. I want to use a props from Redux, which is called name. So instead of saying hello world, I'm just gonna say hello this dot props dot name. So I go back to my store here. I'm gonna create an action called set name. Set name. Save this, and I need to use it in here, so you have to pass it in here. and I also need to create a function. I'm gonna write export function set name and I'll return type, which is this, and the payload. Now this could be an API call, and this payload will contain the results of the call. So for me, this is just my name in here. I save this, then I'll say function and do set name. I'm gonna pass in stat and action. Now using this update add-on, I can update the state. So I'll say return update state, and then I'll write name, which I'll pass in as a props in my component, and I'll set action dot payload, which is this payload here. So now I need to map this. If I go inside my home container, I need to edit like this: name dot state dot home dot name, and I also need to call the action that I just created here, set name. I also need to pass it inside here, so I can actually map state to props and also map my actions, so I can be able to use them in my components. If I don't do this, my component does not know that these things exist. Okay, so one last thing I need to do inside this action handlers, I need to tell Redux like this action is handled by which function. So what I need to do is I'll write set name here, and this action will be handled by this function, and I save this. And if I go here and refresh this, okay, one last thing we need to do inside here, because we need to actually call this action that we just created. So inside our home component, we use a React lifecycle code component did mount. So just write in component did mount. Inside here, I'm going to call this dot props dot our action name. Just going to call this action, save, and as you can see, it's working perfectly. So when our app opens up, when the component mounts, it's going to call this action, and it's going to set this props, and we can display it here. So that's it, guys. The video took longer than I expected. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how to set up native base, then we can actually start building the application. So everything is linked right now. We have our Redux to manage our state properly. So the next coming videos should be easier than this. This is the most difficult part, setting up the React and Redux together to work together. Okay, so thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.